friends from. I should say you're being recorded, and I should also say all protocols observed. So apologies if I've failed to list anyone in my list of welcomes, but you're all welcome. I realise there's a number of organisations represented here tonight. Also here tonight, we're pleased to have invited members of my own party's Westminster Foundation for Democracy, who are visiting today and have been around the Parliament, representatives from both Malawi and Zambia. I'd like to recognise my colleagues and office bearers, the chair of the Malawi All-Party Parliamentary Group, Patrick Grady, MP, and MSP Liam MacArthur, who I think is about to join us online, Alexander Stewart, and forgive me if I have forgotten to mention any others of my colleagues. I think Stuart Boyack may be online. And John Mason has joined us as well. Thank you for coming along. As you've heard, this event's being recorded and will be put out online after the event, so that others can catch up with proceedings. So if you have failed to object so far, you have agreed to being recorded for that purpose. We've got a variety of very impressive speakers in the room here tonight in the Scottish Parliament and online from Malawi, and there will be time for questions and discussion at the very end. So as you're listening, if you can please keep your questions for the end, and you're very welcome to join in then and to use the chat function in Zoom, and we'll try and get around everyone that we can to make sure everyone gets a chance to contribute. I am going to try my very best, without being rude, to make sure that we conclude things by about 7 o'clock. That may mean at points that I have to find discreet ways of hurrying people on. So please don't take that the wrong way. We were just talking today about how the Scottish Parliament has a presiding officers who really don't let you speak for longer than 6 minutes and switch off your microphone. I will not be doing that. But please, if we can try to keep the time. I realise we have some huge subjects to discuss, then we'll try to close the formal part of the meeting at 7 o'clock, when there will be time after that for networking and what has become for this group the traditional Malawi gin and tonic or other alternatives. Before we begin, we have apologies from Kenneth Gibson, MSP. For the last meeting, there are printouts of the meeting of the last Malawi CPG, which was the annual general meeting, which was also held jointly with the Malawi All-Party Group in Westminster. So these have been circulated and a link to the minute has been posted in the chat. So if are there firstly any amendments to correct anything in the minutes? If not, are there a proposer and a seconder for those minutes? A proposer and seconder really it's not costly to be a seconder really. I think you have to have been at the last meeting. You weren't there? Okay. You volunteer, right? We'll get back. Thank you very much.
Sorry, I'll just say, I think actually, for the apologies, Jack McConnell gave the apologies.
Okay. Apologies from Jack McConnell as well.
This was taking place, he was sorry.
Right, okay. My apologies for not recording his apologies.
Yeah.
And I'm told that His Excellency the High Commissioner has been able to join us online, so we're very grateful to have him present this evening too. Okay. The second item on the agenda, and it's a very substantial one, is the subject of Malawi's current food insecurity crisis and the impact that is having on over 4 million people in Malawi. It's something that we will look to hear a lot, hear something about this evening, but it's something that I think is we've been very conscious of in all the organisations represented here tonight. And we're looking forward specifically to hearing from Mr. Fyaupi Mwafongo, the Deputy Director of Response, who will be able to speak on behalf of the Government of Malawi. So I'd like to thank him very much for being here, and we look forward to hearing his contribution on a subject which is touching, I'm sure, many hearts of many organisations across Scotland as well as elsewhere. I think you may be muted. Can we? I can't see them. Is he still muted?
He's there. There he comes, just unmuted.
Welcome to the meeting.
Seems to be a delay with the room connections.
Still looks as if it's muted here.
Participants on.
Good evening, Chair, Honourable Chairperson, honourable members of the committee, the High Commissioner. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you so much. Are you able to see the slides?
Online participants should be able to. Unfortunately, the displays in the room are not great.
We can certainly hear you though if you're able to start. Have you got a screen that you're looking to share?
Coming through the Zoom feed, just not to the room.
Okay. Let me try to share.
Okay. I think the situation is that some of us can see the screen that you're sharing on laptops here. Unfortunately, we can't see it on the big screen.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thanks so much. So I'll just give a brief update on the lean season food insecurity response program. I'll touch on the background, the response modalities, and the progress so far, as well as the resource mobilization efforts. Yeah, so in Malawi, as the Chair, you rightly put it, we are currently implementing a food insecurity response program targeting over 4.4 million people in 28 districts and 4 cities. There was an assessment, and this situation is coming about due to a number of factors. One being there was a decrease in production, and there was also crop pests and infestations that affected production, but also there's been an increase in the food commodities, as well as some climatic shocks, the Cyclone Friday, which also affected most of the production. Apart from that, there's been some economic slowdown due to the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as I think the Russian and the Ukraine war as well, which has made some commodities or prices of commodities to increase, especially food commodities. So based on that report, as government, we facilitated the development of a response plan with the aim of raising resources and also putting in place mechanisms and arrangements to coordinate the implementation of the food assistance program. So we activated 5 clusters to come up with plans, but also interventions in order to address this food insecurity issue. So we have the food security cluster, nutrition cluster, the education cluster, protection, as well as the transport and logistics. And the overall, this response is government-led, but with support from our development partners and other humanitarian humanitarian actors within the country. So if you see from the map, mostly the food security situation is a bit worse in the southern parts of the country, and then in the center a little bit, and then most of the areas in the northern region, as well as partially in the center, the food deficit from the assessment was not as bad as the southern region. So the deficit is ranging from 2 to 6 months, meaning if it's 2, that's the duration which we should provide the food assistance. And if it's 6, it means it's 6 months of providing the food assistance. So you can see that most of the areas where we have to provide food assistance over a longer period of time is concentrated in the southern region, while the center and the north are a bit moderate affected. So in terms of the response, there are 2 modalities that are being used to provide the food assistance. We have the in-kind maize or maize flour distribution, but also on the other hand, we have the cash transfers. So under the in-kind maize or maize flour distribution, the households are being targeted with a 50 kilograms bag of maize or maize flour per month. So they're receiving the actual food commodities. While under the cash transfers, the households are being given a cash value of 50,000 Malawi kwacha, approximately $30, and then they access the food from the markets by themselves. So using these 2 different modalities, so far we have reached to 798,319 households using the in-kind modality, which is translating to 41,956.88 metric tons of food items that we have distributed so far. And then under the cash transfers, we have reached out to 174,003 households, which is translating to 26.1 billion Malawi kwacha being dispersed. This is approximately 26 million US dollars. This one is just giving us this figure in terms of how these different modalities are reaching out. So most of the intervention, as you will see, is mainly a combination of the maize, which is around 59% of the households being reached with maize, and then cash only is 3%. And then we have a combination of the 2 in some districts where the same households would have received a cash transfer for some months, and then the other months they receive the actual in-kind food commodities. In terms of resource mobilization, our requirements were estimated at 247.67 billion Malawi kwacha. These are requirements for all the clusters, all the 5 activated clusters, which was translating to around 226.2 million US dollars. But in terms of the food security cluster alone, we required about 212 million US dollars. And so far, we have mobilized 176.5 billion Malawi kwacha, which should be around 176 million US dollars. And these are some of the key contributors of the resources. So we have the government itself, which has provided support in terms of the actual maize that we are using to reach out to the food insecure households, but also some resources for logistics of distributing that maize. Then we have the World Bank, which has provided funds for cash transfers, but also for procurement of maize flour through the World Food Program. Then we also have WFP using their own resources that also come in, the Embassy of Ireland, we have the FCDO, as well as the government of Germany that have also supported. But also we have other NGOs at local level that are also supporting the efforts, and also some individuals of goodwill that are also reaching out to the food insecure households. So currently, notwithstanding the resources that we have so far mobilized, we still have a gap of 99,000 metric tons to reach out to all the needs or the requirements under the program. So it means for those that are 6 months food deficit, we still have some districts where instead of reaching out for 6 months, like from October up to March this year, maybe we have only provided assistance maybe for 3 months, for some for 4 months. So we still have some gaps in some of the areas. But so far, we have managed to reach out to every targeted beneficiary throughout the program, at least for a month or two. Yeah, so this is the map, which is just indicating which areas maybe are fully resourced in terms of resourcing, and which areas maybe we have a 1 month gap, or a 2 month gap, or a 3 month gap, and a 4 month gap. So you'll see that there are certain districts whereby they are fully resourced. We don't have a gap, meaning to say government has provided, has committed, but also some partners have also committed to support that district, and then we don't have any gap. But at the same time, there are certain districts which have a 1 month gap, especially in the center and in the north. And then most of the gaps are in the southern region, where, as I indicated earlier on, that's where we have the majority of the food insecure population as projected by the assessment. So in conclusion, Chair, as I indicated, we still have a huge gap of 99,000 metric tons, which we need to finish off the support. And there's need for more support, either in terms of the actual food commodities, but also in terms of the cash transfer. Because if we do a cash transfer, it means we'll be reducing the maize requirements that are required to meet out, to finish off the whole program. And I just wanted to highlight that as a country, we have experienced a late onset of the rains. And currently, we are also going through some prolonged dry spells. And all these have a bearing on the current food insecurity response program, but also the subsequent food situation in the country. So the El Nino phenomenon that we are currently experiencing is intensifying. And the worst part is that this is happening on top of the households that were already affected by Cyclone Freddy. So the issue is quite huge. The needs, the situation is dire because it's mostly the same areas that I had highlighted that they were affected by Freddy. It's in the southern part, and that's where we already have currently the more food requirements. And then that's where even the dry spells and the prolonged dry spells have also affected. So it means that we are in a situation of a recurrent sort of chronic food insecurity in this part of the country. So in brief, that's the overview of the food security situation and the response efforts that government is implementing with support from various partners in the country. Thank you so much for your attention. I stop here for maybe any further comments or questions. Thank you. Over.
Thank you very much. We may save our questions until after the other speakers, but we will come back to you as there's a lot in that I'm sure will be of interest, both in terms of the human consequences and also some of the environmental factors that you mentioned there just now. Excuse me. If I may just now, however, we'll move to our next speaker on the subject of human rights in Malawi, and that's Mr. Viwemi Chavula, who has been in Parliament and Holyrood with us today, and was one of those who had a ringside seat in the House of Commons gallery last night as well, I believe. I should say before I move to him that I should welcome Sarah Boyack, who I perhaps failed to acknowledge earlier on. And in that case, can I welcome Viwemi to say a little about the human rights situation. He speaks as the Malawi Human Rights Commissioner and head of the Centre for Civil Society Strengthening.
Thank you so much. Just to extend a warm gratitude to all of you, because the Human Rights Commission position is just 4 months old, but all along I've been working with the SNP, the BFD, since 2018. The support that the SNP, the BFD has supported up to this far has also helped with the revolution, which the appointment last September last year. So I just wanted to explain that We feel greatly honored as a local NGO where we are working on issues of women empowerment and all that. Coming straight to the topic at hand, the issue of human rights in Malawi, I'll quickly share with you the mandate and quick achievements that are there, and then some challenges, and then I think I'll stop there just because of time as well, just to time. So basically, as most of you know, we're set up by the Constitution, where there are bills of rights, and the specific rights for women. This is Section 20, political rights under Section 40, and all that. But the idea behind is that we're set up to protect, promote respect of human rights, and both the Constitution and the Human Rights Act sets out that mandate, but we also have assumed additional roles. Recent years, the issue of access to information, they call it ATI, and then also the monitoring of the Gender Equality Act. So all those also fall under the Human Rights Commission as a constitutional body, complementing the other constitutional bodies like Electoral Commission, the Ombuds, Person, Corruption Bureau, and all that. I think within the years, they have opened regional offices in Blanta and in Zuzu. And then we have also achieved A status according to human rights. So as we were sitting in the Human Rights Council in Switzerland, because I think one of the things that we are maintaining is the issue of the price principles, so the issue of maintaining funding, but also independence. I think we are one body that we can champion to say that when there's a human rights violation, we're able to stand up. We don't pick to say it because it was the president who appointed us. A wrong is a wrong. A violation is a violation, and this team, the FO is able to stand up and push out statements in terms of that kind of violation whenever it is happening. Quickly, again, I think some of the challenges that have been facing the issue of accessibility, much as I talked about that we are available in the other regions, but you find that the most peripheral person in the rural areas are not able to access that. And that is a big challenge. So there are violations that are going on in the rural areas that are going unchecked. The issue of same-sex rights, it's a criminal issue in Malawi. So the penal code, much as the Constitution talks about guaranteeing rights, but it's something that if somebody would stand up, they'll be arrested because of the law, and it's something that we're also grappling with as a commission, as an NGO, in terms of how best do we protect, or we're not selective, we are inclusive as very mandate, but it's a process that we need to work with almost all stakeholders. It's not easy since we're dealing with data and religious barriers as well, as most of you know, Malawi is highly religious. The issue of also limited expertise in critical areas. So, for instance, election monitoring, how best do we anchor or absorb issues of human rights and make sure that people are enjoying all the rights. The issue of what I call trend analysis. By now, one of the things that I share with the secretary is that we should be able now to even tell you to say, if you are in Blanta, what are the human rights issues that are happening, so that even if you are supporting a human rights organization, you should be able to say, we're working in Zuzu because there are issues to do with child violations or women's rights. So we are not at that level, and that's something that could also help us in terms of telling our story better, and even thinking in terms of how best could we put more resources where and all that. And I think the other element that I think we can also do better is the whole issue of public interest litigation. There is very little, much as we have a mandate, a very powerful mandate, but you find that make a school in those whereas we were not able to pick out those because of also issues of challenges of resources. So I'll stop there. One of the funny part is that you find that we're appointed and all that, you find that some of the other human rights or governance institutions are well oiled, but we find that for us to meet even as a commission, to be able to deliberate, the resources seem not to be there. So sometimes you also see like the delivery machination to say that if we support or we give them enough resources, we are going to make a lot of noise. So that also becomes as an issue in terms of funding to help us deliver our mandate. I think finally, where I want to stop, I think is also the whole issue of data management. How do we bring out up-to-date statistics? One of the things that we're doing as two-party reporting, a friend was sharing that among the reports that was being presented was also the missing pieces in terms of value, but also updated data that one could be able to go back to and say this is what is happening on the ground. Chair, let me stop there.
Thank you very much indeed. And again, I'm sure we'll come back to you too. I misread the numbers on the agenda a little earlier, so my apologies. But we're delighted to have with us the Honourable Roseby Gadama MP, who is the chair of the Malawian Parliamentary Women's Caucus. And we look forward to hearing your remarks about your work in that role or any other role. Thank you very much for being here. Okay, just to mention that I think maybe people online are struggling, so we're both being advised to speak up.
Oh, okay. And there's a microphone next to you that is connected to the owl. I don't think the microphones in the room are working, unfortunately, but it's
So that's one.
a great thing. Yes.
That's one of the wonderful things, yeah.
So hopefully that will help just for you speak to that.
Can I just test? Can people hear this?
Yes, there.
Yes, indicate things. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. Good evening, all distinguished guests. Let me be quick to say I'm happy to be in this room this evening, and thank you to SNP and WFD for organizing this meeting. I'm so happy. Thank you so much. I'm here just to share with you as the chairperson for Parliamentary Women's Caucus. I come from the southern region, which the previous speaker said it is highly affected by the hunger, but I'm not going to talk about that. In brief, the Malawi Parliamentary Women's Caucus is composed of 40 female members, or I should say in the August House, we have only 40 female members, but we have 193 seats. So the 40 female members represent about 21% of all the seats. From these 40 members, we happen to have about 12 members who are independent MPs, including myself. I'm an independent member of parliament. This happens because of the challenges we undergo as women. Some of the challenges are lack of political will, that you'd find that some of the political parties do not accommodate the women to participate in key positions. So since everyone campaigns in their own constituencies, you would find that maybe a female candidate is more popular in that constituency. But since the political party has endorsed a male candidate, it becomes a challenge. So the voters are the ones who make decisions on who they want to vote for. In my case, it was also about that fight, but in the end, it happened that the voters encouraged me to stand on an independent ticket, so I won. In Malawi, we have many women who are potential to hold some of these key positions. But as I already said, because of the challenges, it becomes difficult for them to campaign. Even during the campaigns, we experience some negativities like hate speech, some words which are demeaning to the women, and also physical assault. The sad thing is that when you report some of these things to maybe like police, nothing is happening. I'll give an example of my own self. Like I was not in the car. We took that issue to police. Since that time up to date, nothing has happened. So this discourages many women to contest because it is risky. And as I'm talking since 2019, the candidate I was competing with, the candidates I was competing with, especially one who was a bit popular, started campaigning soon after I won. Up to date, he's still campaigning in the constituency. And this brings fear to me that during the previous campaign, we were attacked, and I'm not sure what he's going to do this time around. And this lack of civic education also lacks to the candidates, because I feel it is better to prepare them psychologically on what they should expect during campaign and maybe after voting. Because it is not always that when you campaign, you are going to win. Sometimes you end up losing. And because we lack things like campaign materials, maybe you sell your house thinking that you would win, in the end you lose. And this brings mental health to some of the candidates. So it is my wish that maybe some institutions should take it up to prepare the candidates on what they should expect. So this is lacking to both the candidates and the voters themselves. Like we are misplaced, something like that. But I'll be quick to say it's just unfortunate because we have so many issues out there which affect women. And I feel they would better be tackled by women themselves because they understand them better than a man would understand. So I think I should stop there since you said 6 minutes.
Parliament 6 minutes, but we're giving you 10 minutes because you're...
Yeah, another thing is lack of campaign materials, as I have already said, because you can't campaign without giving your supporters or your voters things. Potential, but financially, we are not. We don't have the financial mass to buy these things, especially the independent candidates. I'm saying that because those who belong to a political party, they get some kind of support from their political parties. But those women who are independent, it's really tough because they have to sponsor their campaign on their own. So this time around things are expensive. And I wouldn't cheat here, campaign is expensive. You really need to get prepared to do the campaign so that you win. Thank you for listening. Allow me to stop here for the time being.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for that. I'm sure we will want to ask questions that are following that, not least given some of the concerning stories that you've told us there about the treatment of women who join the political fray. And our next speaker is going to speak about Sustainable Development Goal 2, and that is to end hunger, achieve food security and improve nutrition, and to promote sustainable agriculture. We're going to hear from Ms. Chilufya Chileshe, who is board member of the NGO Centre for Innovating Development in Zambia, and the Malawi cross-party group are delighted to be hearing not just from Malawi, but from Zambia this evening. So we very much look forward to hearing what she has to say this evening.
Great. Great, thank you very much. I'm very delighted to be in the room with you in person. I have the vague recollection that I have joined this meeting before online a few years ago, talking about water and sanitation in Malawi when I was the policy director for WaterAid. So I'm in the room. It feels different.
Again?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that should be fine.
Wonderful, thank you. Great, so so I'm with the Centre for Innovating Development in Zambia, and we are doing a number of things. We're a knowledge platform supporting really exciting work around post-legislative scrutiny. We've had many interesting discussions in this building today about how we can improve that in the Zambian situation, but I think I'll bring the discussion right back to what Director Mwafongo was talking about, because my second portfolio being here is that I work for a global advocacy platform called the SDG2 Advocacy Hub. And that's where we are looking at the situation of food insecurity across the globe, Africa, focusing in on that. And the situation of food insecurity in Malawi obviously is one of great concern to us and great interest, because we think there are lots of opportunities to try and create global solutions as well as local ones to ending food insecurity forever. And I'm one of those people who, maybe I'm an idealist, but I really believe we can end poverty and we can end food insecurity and nutrition insecurity in this lifetime. And so some of the things that we are really convinced need to happen, I won't get into describing the situation in Malawi because I think Director Mwafongo did a good job of doing that. We know that COVID has been a factor. Climate, especially in Malawi, has been an issue. The ongoing Ukrainian crisis and supply to the continent, there's a lot written about that. The cost of food is escalating in both Zambia and in Malawi. It's, and CARE International said described 10 hidden crises in Africa. Zambia was second in as far as food insecurity and nutrition insecurity is concerned, and Malawi is also on that list of top 10. So we are dealing with some really serious issues here that on the surface don't seem very evident because they are not like a full-blown war, and below the surface, looking at the numbers of children that are stunted in both Zambia and Malawi, wasting still a big issue now in 2024 when we have the solutions for them is completely unacceptable. So we are dealing with these things in a way that we are talking about transforming food systems in ways that we can make them sustainable for the future, but also allow us to respond to the crisis as it is unfolding right now. Some of the things that we are really concerned with are the absence of a global response, because we think this is a global food crisis. What's showing up in Malawi is really just the manifestations of the most vulnerable, but it's a global food crisis. So we need a global comprehensive plan. We need people like yourselves in Scottish Parliament and in other places that are able to address these issues in the public global platforms that they deserve to be doing that. Because we think that it's not enough that there's such a fragmented response from WFP giving small grants in one place, giving food parcels and small grants in one place, UNICEF doing a slightly disparate effort there. We think there needs to be an acceptance that we are failing and a global response plan needs to be in place. The next is investing in things that will help us solve food security on the continent at large, but also in the country. So through the African Union, African governments have made commitments around how to improve situations for smallholder farmers. They're not being held accountable to do it. So we think that the foundations for transforming food systems, for supporting smallholder farmers, who are the majority in Malawi, but they're not supported in the ways that allow for a response that is going to sustainably produce food for the future. And thinking about the fact that climate change is with us for the long term. It's not a short-term thing that we are struggling with very hot temperature. Right now, it's 38 degrees back home. You will be surprised in February, which is unusual. Crops are failing. The maize crop is drying up. Speaking with Honorable Gadama, we were comparing notes, and this is happening in both Zambia and Malawi, that the bran that comes out of milling maize to produce maize meal, which we normally feed to animals, is now being used to feed people because the milling meal is in such short supply and the cost is incredibly high. The result is the bran to feed the animals is also in short supply. So that tells you that the next season is going to be even more dire because smallholder farmers cannot produce the food that is required, not just for this season, but for next season. So I think it's really thinking about that long-term view. We think that it's important to think about saving lives now in terms of a humanitarian and critical response, but securing the future by doing these things. Two other things I'll mention that are important for securing the future is ensuring that school feeding programs can be scaled up everywhere. And we know that in Malawi, you have a good number of children in school. Keeping them there on empty stomachs won't do it when the situation is this bad. Sporadic responses is what's going on at the moment, but a long-term consistent, and because this marries two things, addressing nutrition insecurity and ensuring that we can secure inclusive education that we all care about and want to ensure is continuous. The last point is debt. And in June last year, we worked with President Joyce Banda, the former president of Malawi, to do an op-ed focused around the Paris new global financing pact that President Macron hosted, just to highlight the fact that there's an intricate relationship between the debt situation in our countries, and Zambia is the poster child for how not to do foreign debt. But the effects it's having now on the cost of food, inflation, it's really enormous. But we are failing sometimes to make the connection between the fact that people can't put food on their table and the fact that there's a huge debt problem in the country, and debt servicing is robbing children of their meals. So though we did that op-ed with President Joyce Banda, and I know she's very willing to be a continuous voice on this issue, I think that one of the things that's possible also, whether MSPs and others here would be willing to add their voice together with African leaders around these, to the people that can make the choices, but also the accountability in the countries themselves around spending where we should spend. So I just thought it would be good to bring it right back, because we've been told by the director what's happening internally, but then to kind of give you a sense of what's happening on a slightly macro level, the things we are trying to do to raise attention to this, but a reminder that they need to respond with food parcels in the short term, but we have to be thinking about the securing the future, because this problem is with us for the next 3, 4, 5 years if we don't take the steps necessary. Next year, the bill that he was showing on the screen might be tripled or quadrupled. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Some huge questions and we received just raised this evening, both around human rights and around hunger, and the connection between the economic development and the human rights development in all of our countries that we're here to represent. I'm keen now to hear views from the room, questions from the room, or questions from the room online. So please put up either what you prefer, the chat box or raise a virtual hand, or either raise a virtual hand or put your name in the chat box, or raise your actual hand if you're in the room. I'll come to Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you, also thank you for the whole panel, including Director Mwafongo online. It's really valuable series of presentations. But I'd quite like to ask the Director and perhaps Chilufya a little bit more about cash transfers and what impact they are having compared to the more traditional interventions of simply food handouts, and what determination is made to decide what the right amount is, how often individual households would expect to receive a handout in this specific circumstance, but more generally how they might play, what role they might play to tackle some of the macro issues that Chilufya has spoken about.
Can I just ask people just to come in as and when they wish to answer these points, any of our speakers tonight, and I'm conscious also that online we have also got Fyaupi online as well, so any of you or all of you, however many you want to respond to these questions, please just come in. No?
I'm happy to go. Yeah, sure. I think in terms of cash transfers, I think that there's a lot of research that's gone into this. Research has gone into looking at whether cash transfers have any more impact on households than just food. I think that they say, and I've seen this myself, that it does have a better return because households have the ability to control what they spend on when and how. Some of the challenges we have with outright food parcels is, they're quite monolith, right? We're giving people meal meal and a particular thing to go with that. And it doesn't allow them the flexibility to think about actually, we could stretch the pound, the kwacha. We could stretch this over a couple of days or weeks if we did this slightly differently. There's also evidence that some households use that to invest in something that helps them, bring a return. So the evidence, I think, is promising in terms of what it's showing households are able to do with it. So personally, I think that there is, and I think it's probably the Director's place to say more about this in terms of Malawi, but in both Zambia and Malawi and a few other countries where I've seen it, they're saying this is something we should definitely be backing and supporting. And the option, obviously, there are households whose level of vulnerability are considered destitute to the extent that you have to give them food parcels. Otherwise, they're at risk of starvation, and that's absolutely critical. And I think that the governments are putting in place those measures to assess and because we are building up a body of experience around this, I think we can only get better with it.
I think quickly as well as from the human rights point of view, we see this as something that is falling under it also, the economic social rights. But this is also one area that we have noticed that I think as Human Rights Commission, we have missed out in terms of also reaching out and people demanding what is available, because you find that some of the I know that now I think we've reached the whole country, but in some pockets, they are not there. But also the other element that I think maybe Mwafongo also agree with me is that taking the gender lens. So you find that sometimes they're not desegregating in terms of, you find that female-headed households, youth-headed households are not prioritized. It's just a question of reaching the numbers. But behind those statistics, there's a woman who is taking care of 6-7 children, abandoned and all that. Could we go more than that? Because I think that's also where we could make a difference. And I think as a commission, this is an area that we want to do better in terms of equal social rights.
Thank you. Sarah Black online from Changing Lives Malawi would like to make a comment about feeding children in the rural north of Malawi.
Hi, yes, thank you. It's really interesting what all the speakers have been saying. We're working with a community that are right in the far north near the Mwafongo Hills. and it's really, really isolated, and nobody else is working in that area. We've built a school, we're helping with other water in primary schools, things like that, and we are feeding 500 children once a week. And those children are walking, some of them are walking 15 kilometers to get
Oh, yeah,
one
right.
decent.
Oh, here you are. Come back in again. We lost you for a second there. Come back in.
Sorry, in Chittipa, but in the far north, near Chambo, near the Mwafongo Hills, we're feeding 500 children once a week, and some of them are walking 15 kilometers to get that one decent meal. We're doing lots of different projects to help in different ways, but the one thing, and we're setting up sustainable sources of income for the future, but what we're really, really struggling with at the moment, and as prices are going up and maize is more scarce, is we need somebody bigger to come and help with these children because they are getting more and more hungry. So I'd love it if somebody could chat to me afterwards. Thank you.
Yeah, some of the struggles involved there in that part of the country. So does anyone wish to come in to speak about some of these issues from the panel? I'll come back to you in a second. Yep.
Only to say this really gives life to the point I was making about long-term investment in school feeding. Yeah, and I think that's a good example.
The gentleman at the back would like to come in on that, or?
Thank you. Food security, I remember,
Can you just press your speak button?
sorry.
I'm not sure.
How's that?
Yes.
Is that better? Okay, so during the time of Hurricane Ida, I was down in Zambia, actually in the southern region, and I can see why, because 99% of the southern region is still in great need of that investment in that food. But it's good to hear the honest truth from people that in your lifetime you can literally imagine feeding Malawi and making it sustainable. Malawi has got the biggest, or one of the second biggest freshwater lakes in Africa, and yet people are still waiting for the rain to come. Malawi's full of water, and yet people still wait yearly for the rains to come. My wife is from Malawi, and my daughter's from Malawi. We provide education, free education, and free nurturing, and we provide food at school and at home, because when kids leave school in their daycare centre, they're hungry when they go home, so they make sure that they're fed at home. So we tackle two problems within the community. But one of the biggest things that you spoke about on the, and I can't believe I was talking about this a long time ago with visitors that came to Malawi, about the standard of the food that the children, or the food programmes, i.e. the porridge, which is the stomachs of children is not sustainable to hold. So we have the full army of Malawians, and everyone is a farmer. Every single Malawian is a farmer, and every single Malawian grows maize. But sometimes we have good crops and bad crops. I haven't heard, and I actually still baffled on how you get this fertiliser, or we get subsidised fertiliser. When you have no money, how can you still pay the cost of fertiliser? It just baffles me. We can make fertiliser in 28 days in our village from the byproducts or waste or potato skins, and villages are doing it, and they're teaching other villages to do it. We need to invest in Malawians. As Malawians, we need to have these field trips. They need to be life skill academies in Malawi, and by doing that, you will see in your lifetime people coming out of poverty through growing food. Malawi could be developed. We don't need grain from Ukraine and all the rest of it. Malawi has got the biggest. The lake is bigger than all of Scotland.
That's a good note to end on there, Patrick Carrigan. I should have introduced you. Or maybe food for thought in that people wish to respond to. But I have 2 or 3 people who'd like to come in just now, and then I may have to draw things to a close. But first I have Sarah Boyatt, MSP.
Thanks very much. It's really good hearing directly from you about the experience of being an elected female politician in Malawi. So it's a takeaway for me is to do as much networking as we can through the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association about the rights of women in Malawi and about the importance of women's representation. And at our cross-party group in international development next month, we are talking about women's contribution, and we have a representative from the Young Feminist Network in Malawi. So I think there's something about supporting each other and about being in touch and using our different networks to give you profile and to make sure we support you in ways that we can. So just to say thank you for being with us. And the comment about debt and about supporting farmers in Malawi, it's just a thought about how much more could we do work in Scotland and the UK to help out with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I have a couple of questions here. Firstly, can I ask if Emma Wood can indicate online what her question is? I think she's trying to get in with a question, but if she can put in the chat box what her question is. And the second question from Charles Howie is, I suppose, directed at the government of Malawi. So it's a question. The question is, Malawi is spending money, a foreign currency, importing fresh food produce, which I believe the country can produce itself. What are the government of Malawi's policies to stimulate the development of medium-scale, commercial-scale farming? So there's a lot in that question. I don't know if Honourable, you would want to comment on that, or we've also got a representative online from the government of Malawi. Or maybe just leave it as a comment. Just leave it as a comment. Okay. In that case, was that Charles Henry trying to get in? Ah, right. Okay. Yes. Okay. If Charles wants to come in just now, I should have introduced him as he's involved with Malawi Fruit. So he has a view on that. Does he want to give it online? Or does he want to come in and say something just now? No? Okay, in that case, I'm not sure if he's tried to get in just now, but in that case, we'll come to another person who was Emma Wood. Does Emma Wood want to come in just now?
Yeah, sorry, I was typing madly there. It was very to hear that honest narrative around what it feels like to be a woman politician was. Thank you very much for sharing that. I think that was really important for people to hear. The partners that I'm working with in and around Blantyre, the girls there, women and girls there, lives are being blighted by sexual initiation camps and Kasasa Fumbi. And I wondered what the speakers there felt about that, and I believe it's illegal, although a minister came to another event that the Scotland-Malawi Partnership organised and she thought it wasn't. But I wondered what you know about that and what you could tell us about how to support women and girls.
Does anyone wish to respond, Honourable?
Yeah, thank you very much. I would want to agree with her that there are practices which are called Kusasa Fumbi, Kuloa Kufa. Those are old traditionals, and they also encourage the transmission of some diseases like HIV and AIDS. But those issues have been looked into by the Ministry of Gender through their social warfare. So I would just encourage them that if they happen to be one of the victims, it's better for them to come out and to report, especially to the social warfare. Because as a Caucus, we also have some limitations. We can't really go to probe those issues. But if they report to the ministry, they will be assisted, but the girls should be open enough to report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable. I think we have got Charles Howie who wants to say his piece just now. If we can get in just now, this may be our last chance for a question. So if you can speak just now, please speak, Charles. He has his hand up, but you're muted, I think.
Right, how's that?
We have you now, yes.
Okay, right. I'm the technical advisor to Malawi Fruits, which operates out of Mzuzu. And we're trying to facilitate the development of Malawian-owned medium-scale agriculture, particularly greenhouses and possibly next to chickens. It appears that Malawi imports a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables from South Africa and elsewhere, which might be good for the economy of the neighbouring countries, but drains Malawi of its essential foreign exchange. When I went in November, there'd just been the 40% devaluation, which is absolutely crippling. I'd like to know in what ways you can.
No, we have you again. You might have to repeat yourself a little. We lost the line there, but you were telling us that Malawi imports much of its fruit from South Africa.
Yes. So Malawi Fruits is supporting the development of medium-scale commercial agriculture, particularly by groups of women. We have 120 groups of women growing tomatoes in greenhouses, and we are the sellers, we're the buyers from them and the sellers, because we can aggregate and we can therefore supply large-scale consumers. Malawi is capable of producing far more. So it needs policies that will facilitate that. And if anyone can direct me to the policies that are helping that area, I'd be most grateful. One possible area is through the support of the banks linked to extension services. So a loan comes along with extension service, both agriculture and business extension. That's just one example of what might happen. Is anyone able to enlighten me?
To overcome them. So thank you for that. Can I thank all of our speakers, our very distinguished panel speakers tonight, and for everyone who's participated. It's been a very thought-provoking meeting that's dealt with, as I say, everything from human rights to the immediate challenges and the longer term challenges of hunger, and about some of the things that we can do on a practical level between our countries to work together at a political level and at an international level, and through our international development programmes. As ever, it's a privilege to be part of these meetings, and I would merely again ask you to show your thanks to our speakers and our contributors in the usual way. We don't yet have a date for our next meeting, but the Secretariat will publicise that in good time. Can I, as I say, indicate to people as we close this meeting that those who are in the room are welcome to stay for a conversation and for a refreshment. And can I close the meeting thanking everyone very much for taking part. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Allan.
I think that may be too late if someone's asking a question.
There is a message there. Chat box, not necessarily for the meeting.